And we're back with the Miles Ahead podcast. I am working on half a brain as usual, still in recovery mode. And I have someone here today that may be able to help with some of that. Roxanne Turner, my friend. We met through our Jedi training with Dewey Freeman, his Art of Instinct and Intuition course. She is a neurodivergency specialist. Is that what you call yourself? Specialist? Coach?
Coach. Yeah.
Yeah. And a horse whisperer of some sort. You do magical stuff with horses. I've seen you do it. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. That's my
Yeah,
favorite place to be.
I can tell. Where shall we jump in? We got a lot of cool stuff we can talk about. Want to go
Uh,
backstory first? How you got into all this? Yeah.
sure. Um, because it isn't a straight line. So those that are trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up, it's totally okay that you don't know. Um, so where did I start? I started, I guess, in terms of career as a professional equestrian. So at 10, I started riding, and then that was my life. Where everybody else in high school was partying, I was at the barn.
Look at you.
Hanging out. I rode through parts of college, and I mean, that was my life for probably like professionally 10, 12 years. Was on the circuit, assistant trainer, starting young horses, working with individuals from most of the youngest usually was 7 because I like them to have at least, like, 1 year or 2 years of school under their belt, so they knew how to listen to authority,
Yeah.
sort of.
Uh-huh.
And then I taught adults, and then varying from ability, from brand new to very experienced. Um, I actually kind of honestly, I kinda miss that, the little kiddos, because they were always really entertaining.
Mm.
Um
We'll get my daughters out to you at some point.
I would love that. There I have so many stories, I still have never forgotten, and I think was it in my early 30s? I had a pretty significant accident, and it took me about 2 years to recover, and I sorta realized, I loved it that other people were achieving their goals, but I wasn't, and I was pretty injured, and I was like, "Hmm, I have to rethink this." Long story short, I then transitioned into IT sales and project management.
Oh, hard right.
Yeah, hard right, but the reason I did the sales was my goal or my thought was, if you're really good, you work really hard, you can make a solid living, and then I was hoping to afford my own horses,
Oh, okay.
which
Yeah, that makes
or
sense.
horse, which it did. And then I did that for about 12 years and realized, "Hmm, I don't think I wanna do this anymore." And then, I learned about ADHD coaching at the time. It's now, I guess, 12 years ago, somewhere around there. I learned about ADHD coaching and then executive function coaching, and then I started doing some my due diligence and making some phone calls, and I realized I already did this. And I kinda forgot to mention when I was, professional equestrian and I was actually heading down to Florida, my dad really got into leadership coaching. Like he would go to courses and things like that. And he's like, "You need to do this." And he started giving me the books. And I fell in love with coaching and leadership coaching and was like, "I want to do this when I grow up." And then everybody said, "Well, you can't because you don't have corporate experience." Well, I was like, "Okay." So I was a
Smart
little
advice.
Yeah, I was a little, like, sad, but at the same time, I was really excited about the topic, and I did some workshops from the encouragement of my father, and then I just kept reading about it, and then, here I am now. I've been coaching almost 11 plus years I've been coaching,
Mhm.
and like I said, I learned about the ADHD and executive function coaching, and why that kinda spoke to me was working with horses and kids. I didn't know what it meant at the time because I was in my 20s, and one of my one of my kiddos had ADHD, and the mom was like, "Man, I can't believe how well she focuses. She only on a quarter of Ritalin." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just gonna keep it interesting and make her work for it." And I didn't understand what that meant. I just knew that with kiddos, you had to keep it interesting or they would zone out.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so when I learned about this coaching, I was like, "Oh," it just really spoke to me that there's more than one way to get from A to B.
Mm, mhm.
And so, yeah, I've been doing it since in the beginning it was middle school, high school, and college, and now it's sort of transitioned to mostly college and adults, professional adults, and some high schoolers here and there.
So anybody with a neurodivergent diagnosis of some sort, you would take on to do coaching?
Yeah, I'd say the majority, I'd say 60 to 70, well, from the student perspective, I'd say 80% are have a diagnosis, and then my adults, some do and some are self-diagnosed, right? Usually what happens is, like, their kids get diagnosed because 'cause they're not they're struggling in school, and then they're like, "Oh, wait a minute,
Oh, that was my childhood too. I did that too.
fall far from the tree."
Yep.
Um, so, yeah, I'd say the majority of my clients are diagnosed or self-diagnosed, that basically, like, how they function in the world, which I so can appreciate, is not linear,
Correct. Yeah.
right? And then how do we support, right, in the work that you do, right? Ultimately, that's where we really fall in line. To better understand ourselves, then we have agency, and then figuring out the tools and supports we need so we can be successful.
Mhm. Agreed. And it seems like, ADHD is all the rage these days. You know, everyone's like, I don't know if society's setting itself up to do it with phones and doom scrolling and stuff. I'm sure that doesn't make it any better, but, uh, it seems to be popping up more and more, at least it's like a throwback. I'm in the '80s of when everyone all the kids were on Ritalin. It's like it feels like that again, but a little more maybe a little more sophisticated. Um, I like that there's the ADD and inattentive type, and then there's ADHD and some other, diagnoses out there, but it seems a lot of times just get lumped in with ADHD. And I've seen a lot the ADD and attentive type slip through the cracks, especially with girls, because they're not
Yes.
doing the hyperactive thing. With boys, it's like, oh, that slam dunk right there. Girls, it's they're compliant. It looks like they're compliant. They're sitting in class and they're just spacing out unless it's something interesting. So I'm glad that that's being recognized more. Then we have the autism spectrum side of things. I don't know if you go there as well with your work.
I do level 1, but yes, absolutely, and then a lot of my clients also have, dyslexia, dysgraphia, other learning
Mm,
challenges as well.
mhm.
Um, and then, like, to your point, usually the boys are diagnosed earlier because of behavioral, and they also can be missed.
It totally can be missed. Do you also work with alexithymia? Does that come across sometimes?
No, I have not.
That's a trouble distinguishing what emotion is what. You know, like out of touch with your emotions. I don't know if it crosses over the same areas of the brain as dyslexia does.
Um, no, I have not. A lot, I'd say sometimes they can't verbalize, but I will say the self-awareness is very high, like, that emotional IQ,
Mhm,
uh, like, is very high. It's then what do we do with it,
mhm,
right? Those unwritten rules that are
mhm.
out there that we sort of everyone expects us to know, and we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then we have the anxiety spectrum
Mhm.
disorders out there, and generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, all the ones people know about. Do you
Yep.
also work with those, like social anxiety, OCD, things like that?
Yeah, well, a lot of clients that are, as you know, diagnosed with ADHD, they also often have those additional social anxiety, OCD. So this is the part I think that can be tricky, right?
Mm, mhm,
Is knowing sometimes a lot of my clients also work with therapists. So the best way I explain it is when the anxiety or whatever the thing is so big we can't get past it, right? We don't have those coping skills. That's where I really need a strong therapist
Mhm.
help support that. And then what I say to my clients, assuming then that coaching is still applicable, because right, in a very high level, simple way, I'm about the what and the how. So when clients are working and they start to come up with these strategies, okay, how are you going to practice this? So when you need it, you have it, right? And so that's where I think I've really appreciated my partnerships with therapists when they're like, okay, these are the strategies we're working to support when the anxiety is so big, they're having trouble showing up in the world.
Mm. Yeah, get a team around them.
Yeah,
Do you see depression show up too sometimes?
absolutely.
Yeah. I imagine it seems to be a byproduct of both these.
Absolutely. I mean, I think of one story where someone went and spoke with their therapist and they came back to me and they're like, yeah, I learned I have situational depression. Okay. Do you know what to do about it? No. Okay. Well, so we started breaking out like kind of I call them sort of the well-being buckets, right? Like going outside, movement, social, food, right? How are you filling those buckets that are manageable and doable?
Mhm.
So we kind of talk about that. So that's again where sometimes it's fun when the client's like, "Oh, I learned this, but I don't know what to do about it." And um and then we get to kind of implement those strategies or plans to support that.
Mhm. So, tailored to the person you're working with.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
imagine the work looks different from kids to college students to adults to executives, or is it
Um
a lot of crossover?
I mean, obviously there's a language, right? Like there's we have to respect the development of a teenage brain, adolescent brain,
Yes.
right? And that we're planting a lot of seeds, even with young adults, with college students. And like the best example I have, I worked with this one young man for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. And I just so adored him because one day we were wrapping up and he's like, I totally get this now, Roxanne. And I was like, okay, what do you get? He's like, sleep well, go outside and move, eat well, and don't smoke pot. It's amazing what I can do in a day. I was like, you are set, and now he is off and flying. So, like, sometimes, right, like, that's not very profound, but yet it was. It was a year and a half of ups and downs, and he put this together himself, right? And now he's going and living his best life. So, yes, in terms of language, and then sometimes the seeds need to be planted, and hopefully they have a community around them that people are saying the same thing in different ways.
Mhm.
And then obviously with adults and professionals understanding what are the roles, and then life, as you know, gets more complicated when you're married, you have kids, maybe you're going back to school, running a business. I don't know. It gets more complicated,
Yes.
right? How do you manage that? But
Mhm.
that is also fun.
And stress can exacerbate ADHD, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I call it where this is not very scientific, but when you're younger, you can get away with a lot, right?
Mm. Mhm.
Neurotypical or not, but
Mhm.
you can get away with the physical abuse, right? If you think about the all-nighters, 2
Mhm.
a.m.s, all that. As we mature, there's less wiggle room, and then with ADHD, or if you're on the spectrum, there's even less wiggle room.
Mm.
We have to be really intentional and mindful of our nervous systems,
Mm.
right? Like, they're the individuals you want if there's an apocalypse, because 'cause they're gonna be paying attention to
Yeah,
everything. They're
yeah,
gonna notice everything. They're gonna be on it, right?
yep.
I know I'm generalizing. Understanding in our world today, it's like, how do we have to protect it? Because there's less wiggle room to sort of
Mm.
abuse it. If that makes sense? Like late
Completely.
nights, not
Yeah.
working out, whether it's uh, a little alone time or social, depending on what fuels them, the
Mhm.
individual.
Doom scrolling, just depleting your dopamine, which
Yeah,
There's already deficit of dopamine in our brains with ADHD.
Yeah, and I would say that's the one where, that is the hardest one, and it makes me the saddest, how
Yeah.
much we're having to compete with the phone.
Yep. Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, because
Really.
it it takes away, but a lot of my clients kind of figure it out through conversation. I can't tell you how many have deleted Instagram.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta like, if you're an alcoholic and you got beer in the fridge, you're gonna drink the beer, so get it out of your fridge. Delete the
Yeah,
social media if it's that interruptive to your life, disruptive.
exactly, and it is for so many, and but it's like, again, it's how do you have those conversations, especially when they're young adults, right? They're responsible for their phone usage. Like,
Mhm,
how do you have those conversations where it's non-judgmental and or note that maybe it is a bigger problem, and how can
mhm.
you, partner, or maybe they have to transition with a therapist because maybe, they're looking for that stimuli and that's just um that's outside of my scope.
Yeah, then you get this whole, like, pseudo relationship where
Mhm.
it's less risky, but you're still, quote, unquote, "connecting with people," but not really.
Yep.
Or if you're in high school and you feel left out because your friend has it and they're texting each other and you can't text them, it gets complicated, and I just I'm scared for my daughters, like, you you all, speaking to the girls, maneuver so quick. Like, I was throwing rocks at trees at their age. I was, like, doing dumb boy crap, and my daughters come back and talk about these complex social things happening. I'm like, I didn't do that till, like, freshman year in high school. Like, "Oh, this social stuff matters?" Like, oh, dang. She's doing it
It's
at, like, 4th grade.
That's about right. I will say, if this makes you feel better, so my brother and sister-in-law had very, like, strict rules around, like, no Snapchat, no
Mhm,
Instagram. They eventually, when she was in middle school, they finally did the phone because she was playing tennis and it was just easier to coordinate, but they have very strict rules, no phone in their room, and my niece wasn't happy about the no Snapchat and social media, and then at 14, she's like, "I am so happy I don't have that because I see what it does to all my friends, and they're spinning and they're miserable," and she's like, "I have no idea what's going on, and I'm fine with that."
that's the good news.
So, and then I've seen that with other, clients or families where they'll have the flip phones or
Mm,
dummy phones,
dumb phones,
and
yeah.
yeah, interesting, then those kids sort of congregate together.
Ah, okay. The dumb phone click, hell yeah.
Yeah, but I think there is a movement because of that one book, Anxious
Yeah,
Generation,
good book, yeah.
um, and what he writes in terms of what I've seen with phone usage and success and getting out, it's true,
Mhm,
and so, kinda sticking to it, hopefully those around you support that and do the same thing, and those that don't, like when my kids were young, I would just they'd say, "Well, over here, I'm allowed to do that." I'm like, "That's great. You don't here." So
yeah,
you can figure it out when you're
yeah,
18 which
yeah,
rule works for you.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're training them at a young age. That's good.
Yeah, it's, one of my, woman who was a principal, when she would walk the halls, she's like, "I was a benevolent dictator." And so
Mm,
sometimes I think as parents, we're
mm.
benevolent
Yeah,
dictators or very authoritarian, like, "I love you, and this is just how it's gonna be."
that's such a great statement, "I love you, and then you
Uh-huh.
say that always goes over better than the part that comes after the end. It's a genius Jedi mind trick saying. It really does soften the blow, so to speak.
Well, and I think so, and I know this is easier said than done, but when the boys were little and they'd want something, I'd always say, "I love you, and I'm lazy. I like no. So, come with me with better information to get me to yes, because you need to figure that out. I don't feel like it. I can't be bothered." And then they come back with stuff, and
There you
for
go.
me, that made it just kind of fun and,
Mhm.
ridiculous. Um,
Yeah. Teaching them to be negotiate and have good negotiation skills from a young age.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know, that part I loved.
Mhm. That's great. I've heard many of good stories about your mom rearing from you.
I've learned a lot. Some things I think I could have done that different, but some things I did. I loved challenging them. Uh, and sometimes they'd make me so mad. I'd be like, I can't talk to you right now because I will not be my best self. I'll talk to you 24 hours. Like, I love
Yep.
you and no, can't talk.
Yeah. Parent feels that.
Yes, and I think, if I think of coaching and, the work that you do, that's okay, right? It's not all rainbows and daisies. I mean, I love my husband, and sometimes I'm like, "I just don't really like you today." And I know some days he's like, "I love you, and I don't really like you today," and that's okay.
Yeah. We'll check in tomorrow.
Let's go to our separate corners.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's human nature for sure.
Mhm.
Did you do, horsework with your boys, growing up or no?
Well, we did. They were little, and we did as a family, right? Because we were a blended family, because 'cause they're my stepsons. So we did, and it was really fun for me, um, to watch them because it kinda told me a lot about their personality. I mean, it wasn't fair, like, I had brought all this experience, but it was really interesting to see them in that horse work, how they kinda showed up in, day to day. Right? Like, when were they really being clear on what they wanted? Or when were they sort of being passive and then the horse was blowing them off,
Mhm.
right? And then it was also fun because their dad doesn't know anything about horses. So it was really cool for them to see their dad kind of struggle, right?
Mhm.
And very relaxed and low key about it makes me crazy sometimes, but one thing I appreciate about him is with stuff like that, he has no ego.
Oh, he's a pilot too, so you kinda gotta be that way.
Yeah, he kinda shows up, and he was okay when he did it wrong, and, like, just to be, like, truly a beginner's mind in front of his sons
Mhm.
they were little kids, elementary school at the time,
Mhm.
and so that was really fun, and then there was, I think, another time he did it with one of his other kiddos, because I just love it. I mean, I know you have your story with your work with the horses, is that I don't know. Because I've had clients do the work. It's like, the way I put it is the spotlight's not on you, it's on the horse, because the horse is telling you everything about you.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you can talk about the horse, you don't have to talk about yourself.
Mhm. It's very therapeutic.
It is. And, what was this one young man, he was in middle school, and he had been doing equine therapy, and I asked him, what was it about equine therapy that worked for him? And he's like, "Well, I have a perfect example." He's like, "We were in kickball, and I was in line, and everybody was going far too slow." And he's like, "6 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to basically bite my tongue and stay in line and just wait my turn." He said, "6 months ago, I would have just taken my turn and just bypassed
Yeah.
everybody," and so I was like, "Yeah, that's about right."
So you learn how to slow down a little bit.
Learn how to slow down, learn how to have patience, and then he also had, some wins as well. Because I think there was this one particular horse that sometimes was difficult to catch, and he was able to catch that horse. So that self-confidence of catching a horse that might sometimes, give people a ride for their money, he
For
was
sure.
able to do it,
That's
right?
great.
If I had my dream, I wish all little kids could do stuff with horses for a couple years, and I think some of these executive function challenges, some of these other challenges would be, I mean, I'm being completely biased, and it's what got me through middle school and high school and elementary school because it was not fun. I I I think there's so many lessons they teach you that
Yes.
you can apply,
Yeah.
you know?
So for the people that have no idea what we're talking about with working with horses, maybe we should walk them through how that might look, especially for someone with ADD or autism spectrum. So working with Dewey, and he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of
Yep.
horse, whatever you want to call it. Uh, you know, don't the horse will reflect back your energy. If you're anxious, yep, it'll pick that up and maybe take a step away. If you're lethargic, it'll be lethargic. Can't come on too fast, too strong. You have to. There's this like give and take of energy.
Yep.
Little steps. Does it trust you? Okay, go forward. If it's not, take a step back. Is that how would you do that with somebody with on neurodivergent?
Same way. Same way. Absolutely same way. And then, I mean, there's an education piece, right? Like, cause you got to stay safe. So maybe the think about is um maybe having them repeat it back,
Mm,
right? And then sort of that repetition, like to make sure they remember the thing.
mhm.
Cause that's what I did a lot, especially with little kids. I had a couple little boys. They needed a lot of repetition, a lot. But it's pretty much the same thing. And then just I think it is the same thing and meeting people where they are, you
Mm,
know? Um, and then sometimes you might have to make it a little bit more interesting depending where they are in their confidence level engaging with the horses.
mhm. That makes sense. And we were working with Dewey a couple months ago, and we were doing he was teaching us Gestalt, and we were one of the brave ones. Were like, let's do it with horses. Which all you therapists out there is like, you can do Gestalt with horses. It's different than working with the chair.
Yeah.
And you did a beautiful job with yours. And I got to see how you would walk somebody through working with horses. And I know we can't speak about this person's particular
Yeah.
experience, but this person did have a fear around horses, and that was kind of the work they wanted to do. And you talked them through it, and I was like, "Oh, that is amazing!" How you, yeah, I could see how you would train somebody to even approach a horse, harness, do this, do that. How do you do that? What does that look like if you're starting to learn how to do that?
Well, I think it's oof. You mean like if someone's trying to learn how to do that, like to teach other people?
Or just for the first time, if they have a fear of horses or they want to work with horses and they don't know what to do. You said a lot of repetition, but maybe give an example maybe of how you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one is normalizing the fear, like understanding it, right? Um, and because there is a safety component, right? Like in theory, you're doing this with horses that are appropriate, like they're
Yeah, yeah,
rock stars, but they're
yeah.
still horses. Like stuff
Mhm,
still happens. So I always
mhm,
believed in education, right? Like we talked about, how do they see, what are their blind spots? And then if you are nervous, well, then you should get out of the way, right? It's like learning to ride the wave of what your body is telling you.
mhm,
Because I will say in general, in all the years I did it, or even dealing with my own nervousness or anxiety, usually it was trying to your body is trying to tell you something. Right? And so it's like, how do you listen to it, but then not get stuck in it? And I just around the horses, a big part of that is education. And when you're working with an individual who's nervous, is, as you know, and you saw, I always believed my responsibility was keeping my rider safe as much as possible. Right? That I wasn't going to ever ask them to do anything I didn't know they could do.
mhm.
Put them on a horse or around a horse that wasn't appropriate for where they were.
That makes sense.
Right?
Mhm,
Um, and I think there was only one kiddo who well, she tried so hard, but she was so scared it wasn't gonna work, right? Like, we did a couple lessons, and I'm like, "Do you like this?" She's like, "Not really." I'm like, "Then stop." Then stop. Uh, but I think it's patience, and then, it's like in coaching and in therapy, it's like this dance, knowing when you can push them a little bit
Mhm.
And then when you just kind of need to stay and they just need to keep practicing those foundations,
Mhm.
and validating their experiences. And then also, one of the things which I think I did in that, and I did that even when I was younger and didn't know anything, I would bring outside life in to the lesson,
I like it.
right? Like with my teenagers, I was a little mean, but I'd make fun of them. Like, how can you possibly drive a car if you can't ride your horse in a straight line? Like, what are you
There we
doing?
go.
Right? I'm like, I don't want to be on the road when you're on the road, right? It wasn't very nice, but
Good banter.
the parents thought it was great because they were learning to drive, but, right, like, learning how to look, or when I've had super successful professionals and they come out for a lesson and they're gonna, sort of be very assertive,
Mm,
and that's not the horse that they have. That's not the horse they need. Like, "Okay, now you gotta leave that at the barn door and you need to partner with your horse because actually your
yes.
horse does more than you do. So I need you to like back off." So to me, that's the thing I loved about it is like it is again with coaching and therapy, it's meeting the person where they are. You
Mhm.
just thinking about how are we building these skills and then how are you always finessing it,
Mhm.
right? I mean, yeah, I've done horses for a very, very long time, but there it is endless all the things that I can learn and finesse.
Mhm.
And always, I think to me, like horsemanship is always about being sort of, I guess I can't think of a better word, but humble, but always being willing to learn.
Mhm.
If you don't agree with it, but you're willing to hear it out or try it out. And if it doesn't stick, there's no, well, that person sucks. It's like, it just didn't work for me. So I would do something else. And that's
Mhm.
to me, like, and with the horses, I always thought about that. I always try to teach my clients. And then sometimes with some of my kids, I would just have fun. If they had to, you know, pop their horse with the stick because it wouldn't go and they wouldn't do it, I might like give some encouraging words like, did you have a sibling? Yes. Were they bugging you? Yes. And I just do a little pop, like, "What you wish you could do," and then, "Oh," right? Like, do what you wish you could do, but you can't. So, I mean, to me, I think I I do love it because you can bring so much in, but it is patience.
Yeah.
And, if you're the person supporting the process, you have a responsibility
Mhm.
to know where your client is.
Yeah, agreed. I like that meeting where the person where they're at, we as therapists were taught that, and it seems like with horses, it's meeting you where you're at because they're just a giant mirror. When I was at Happy Dog Ranch with Traver and Dewey and Michael for the uncivilized retreat,
Yeah.
when I was working with that, it was a Mustang. I didn't know it was a Mustang, and he was just running around in the it's not, what do you call it, a pen? Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
round pen, yep.
Um, And a lot of the guys were like, whoa, take a step back. And a lot of guys were like trying to save it and go at it. And it was just like, get away, get away, get away. And afterward, Michael was like, I could tell pretty much what your attachment style was dependent on how you react to that horse. Cause all the avoidants were like, no. And all the anxious people were like, I will save you. And then we were all like, oh shit. Got called out. Cause there's a giant mirror, you know?
Yep.
Because some of the secure base folk were kind of like in the middle, like, let's just see what happens. And I was lucky enough to have Dewey walk me through making contact with the horse. I probably would have went one of the guys trying to save it, but I didn't.
But I think that I've never actually worked with a Mustang before, but, like, just the fact that, like, knowing that you maybe would have tried to save it, but that you were open to that support from Dewey, and we know he's masterful,
Mhm.
and that you could do that with this, Mustang that was running around, and I know there was more to the story of the contact you had with him. It's so special,
Mhm.
and the other thing I love about the work, which is also can be challenging, you can't have an agenda. You can't have a timestamp 'cause do you mind how long did that take for you to get there with that horse?
15 minutes, 20 minutes. And it felt like a time dilation, so I couldn't really tell you. It's sort of like when you do Gestalt and it was like, oh, that was 5 minutes. You're like, no, dude, that was an hour and a half. Like, what? It's very similar. I don't know. It was not short, but I don't feel like it was super long. Like 20 minutes, maybe
Oh, that's pretty.
half
That's
an hour.
actually that's pretty.
Stood there with it for a while afterwards, so it's hard to say. But when I made first contact, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes,
That's pretty good. Did you have just out of curious? Do you mind me if I ask a question or two?
not at all.
So when you started, obviously listening to Dewey and working with him, did you have any sort of agenda or time frame in your mind?
As far as
Like
how,
like I need to get this done in X amount or
not at all,
okay.
zero. I was just like, whatever he tells me to do, I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
so I just did it. And he's like, see how he lowered his head or made they had that little whimper with their,
Yep.
he's like, he's releasing energy and now approach. And then, he puts his head up or these little tells that he knows as a Jedi master, like, oh, I didn't even notice that. Cues to approach or hold your ground, whatever.
Yep.
And for people don't know, Mustang is a wild horse that's never seen humans before. So that was why this was extra wild to do because all the other horses in there were pretty chill. A lot of them just stand there. You just walk up to them and they're just like, whatever, man. Bet me if you want to. I'm going to eat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so like that experience, like I would think, and this is why I love horses, right? Like 20, 30 minutes. Really not that long. So if we think of like but you didn't have an agenda, you just kinda went through the process, and I think of like, your kids or adolescents or other things in life, like, we're
Mm,
always having
yes.
to get to the next thing.
Good
How do
call.
we, right, create the space?
Hmm.
Because sometimes when it sounds so backwards, if we slow down, we'll speed up, right? Like, if our kid's
Yes.
having a meltdown and we just are like, "You know what? We're gonna get
Hmm.
there when we get there."
Yep. Just
And just
regulate yourself. Yep.
yeah, and then just kind of go through it. It's a lot in general, I'm generalizing. It'll get they'll go through it faster versus, "We gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go." We're just gonna
And yeah. Amp
we're
them
just
up. Yeah.
we're all gonna build it, and then everybody's miserable for the rest of it versus
If I
we
yell louder, maybe they'll actually hear me.
it's a strategy. I don't know how effective, but it's a strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not the best strategy. Yeah, just sitting there sometimes in a meltdown and just like I'm just gonna be here. I'm like I'm not going anywhere, but I'm gonna let you just get it out. Or sometimes like I'll m- have my daughter like squeeze my hands, and that's worked recently. Just like come home. She comes home with like school drama, and just like she bottles it, and then it just comes out, and it's just like
Yep.
whoa, stream of consciousness. Like, do you want to like squeeze? Um, Stuff like that, yeah, I think you're right, like, slow is smooth, smooth is fast is the Navy SEALs say, it's very similar idea. So, learning that from the horses, that's a good call out, like, I think that's genius. If you can practice that with horses, you can take that back with you to your home life with the people in your family, your spouses, things like that.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and then it's just and it is fun if you do get to do it as a family, I think, 'cause, as you know, my husband and I have done some of that too, work together, and that was just kind of I don't know, I think it's just it for me, it's special because it gives me more understanding, of course, as you know, around the horses, that's, like, my happy spot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can deal with anything if they're around me, even if I'm not touching them, I'm just so happy. So it
Uh-huh.
really I don't know. They tell so much and there's so much you can bring everywhere. And of
Mhm.
course, you know.
Yeah, I'm learning to love them as well. I've never really been scared of them. My grandpa had them when I was growing up, but he died, I think it was 7 of lung cancer from Agent Orange from Vietnam, and he was a Marine. But he had a huge uh, ranch in Colorado, actually up in Livermore near Fort Collins. And so we had
Wow.
horses. The last time I had ridden a horse was a picture of me on this white horse when I was 7. And then the most recent time was that experience with the Mustang. And it was just like, it was so special, you know? And Dewey kinda has that grandpa feel, so I feel like I got some of that back, you know? You know, after the process, we were just walking back and looking at all the other animals there, and I was like I felt like it was 8 next to him for a moment there, like I regressed for a bit. It was funny, it was like I felt like I was shorter than him, like, we're, like, the same height, so it was weird. It's so weird what happens during these experiences, and that's why I love these retreats, I love this work, it's just it's healing, you just go places you don't normally go.
Absolutely, and just being around them. That is kind of I'm sorry to hear about your grandfather, but and that's still cool around that you got to have that experience at least when you're little, and then again now,
Yeah, yeah.
compare and contrast. I mean, it makes me think of my father. So, his father was an equestrian, played polo, was really good. My aunt was also really good in saddle seat. My father skipped a gene. And he was scared to death of them, and so he was horrified when I decided to ride. He was like, "Ugh, gonna swear, she's gonna get hurt, it's gonna be expensive." Like, ugh, but he was scared, and he wasn't I appreciate it because he would tell me he was scared, and I'd still make him hold my ponies. I'm like, "Here, just sit there, you'll be fine." But then he I wanna say he was in his 60s when he decided, "I wanna get over this fear," and started learning how to ride at 60. Yeah, I thought that was he sent me a picture of him in a big Western saddle, and he did it for a while, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm good." I'm done.
Check.
Check. But, yeah, I mean, I just sometimes I know it's like I wish, like, it would be a part, especially for kids, again, just being around the barn, having to take care of these big, beautiful creatures and knowing that they can lead them around or, provide the direction or just be by them,
Mhm.
right? And learn to read those nuances because that translates to people.
It surely does, yeah, and your own internal world.
Yeah.
It's a twofer. When did you when did you start working with, Dewey? And we're talking about Dewey Freeman for all the people that don't know. You can look him up if you don't know. Most people from this podcast know what I'm talking about. When did you first meet him and work with him?
I was actually thinking about that because I thought you might ask me that. I know it was before COVID. So 2019, 2018, we started working with him. One of the reasons he was referred to me by another therapist that I had been working with. And the reason that he so appealed to me was one, as you noted, he's this, well, I called him the Marlboro man. And when I was explaining to my husband, I was like, I think we need to do this because we had tried a couple other couples therapists that just didn't work for us. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, he looks like the Marlboro man. So I'm like, and he does horses. So I knew we'd be outside, which would be like, I knew would be really grounding for me and safe. And yeah. And so we started, I wish I could remember. I think it was like 2018, early 2019. We started working with him.
Mhm. So you already
And
knew quite a bit about horses, but then I'm sure he leveled you up in a way. What as far as, like, the psychotherapy aspect goes?
yeah, well, actually, it was one of my questions because I had had experiences in the past where when I did that other family equine therapy, like when I knew too much, I sort of felt sidelined, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
And so I talked to him about that. I was like, well, my concern is like, I love the idea of the horses. I think it'll be great with my husband too. It'll be kind of like a equal playing field,
Yeah, for sure.
but I don't want to, I don't want to lose out because I know too much. I know that sounds really arrogant.
No, it makes sense. I get it.
And he's like, "No, don't worry about it. We will, like, work collectively, and you will be a part of it. Like, you will not be sidelined." And, I wasn't, and it was, again, it was really grounding for me, and it was also good because my husband and I were learning about each other and our communication styles and ourselves with working with the horses, and it was also, again, we weren't especially at that point, we weren't shining the light on each other.
Mm.
sometimes, as you know, is not a good thing to do. Just find it outward
Good call. Yeah.
on a 1,600-pound creature,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you'll behave much better. And so, yeah, so we worked with him until February of this year when we started the program.
Yes. So he
Yeah.
was doing, his Gestalt therapy with you guys.
Yes.
Mhm. With
Yeah,
horses.
with horses and then, yeah, because we had the longer sessions. Yeah, and, I mean, I think it's to me, it really came to point as, like, learning our communication style and our when do we need to be leaders and when do
Mhm.
we need to be support, right?
Mhm.
Because 'Cause we're both jockeying for position.
Mhm. That's
And then
relationship.
right, and as you know, because we got to hang out for 6 months, that if I jockey for position, you have to work really hard to get me out of the way. Sometimes that's not
Yeah.
beneficial,
You don't like to follow too much, do you?
but if I know, like, if it's clear to me that it's not my place to lead, I
Yeah.
am happy to be a support, but
I can tell, yeah.
yeah, but, we weren't doing a very good job of we were both just always jockeying and forgetting to talk.
So common. It's so common.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to explain to people that don't know, 1, if what Gestalt is, and then 2, how do you do it with equine therapy, and watching and then how Dewey does it, but it's very experiential. It's not cookie cutter. It's an art form, and he kinda just intuitively goes with it.
Well, yeah, he's ridiculous. It is like you're like,
Yes.
How did you do that?" "I don't know, I
Yes.
did it." You're like,
Yeah, it
"What
just
the hell?"
seemed right, like, "Damn it."
Yeah. And I think that where it's so powerful is it changes the dynamics where the story we run, or the patterns, like, when you're out working with the horses, like, you want to maybe, like, I don't know, get in that pattern, that hamster wheel. It's real hard to do that when you're working with this, you know,
Yeah.
1,400-pound, 1,600-pound animal.
They don't give a rip about your patterns.
No, they don't. Which is which is good because then you're starting to practice the things you need to bring into whatever your relationship or your life.
Mhm.
And I just found um it was way less obviously less confrontational. Like, for me, it was like wading into the ocean of, like,
Mm.
some of my dumb stuff
Mhm.
versus, like, getting hit over the head where I was like, "Alright, I gotta stand my ground, and I'm just gonna be not nice."
The old pattern, yeah.
The old pattern versus, "Oh, okay, I see what I'm doing and how this can affect, right, in my relationship. Well, that's not
Mhm.
how can I start practicing a different pattern and create
Mhm.
neural pathways?" And it takes time. And sometimes I think that's the thing is not being afraid of the messy part.
Yeah, it's always messy.
And it's very messy. But,
Plus, there's horse shit.
there is horse shit. And then but I
Pun
think, like,
intended.
to your point, right, with that equine, the work and the gestalt and working with Dewey is, again, I both my husband and I trusted him 100% that he was never
Mm,
gonna ask us to do something or answer a question that we couldn't answer. It might be hard, but we knew in that messy part or that vulnerable part, he was grounded
yeah.
and he could, you know, ride the waves of whatever came or, and sometimes as you know in the training, my husband and I would joke we'd get in trouble because he'd call us out for being dum-dums, right? I think
Yeah, in the most compassionate, Dewey way, but yes.
no, I think he just told us we were being dumb. He's like, "I don't understand. You guys are great people. Why can't you figure this out?" I don't know.
He meets you where you at. He knows your language.
Exactly. And so but that's what I appreciated, right? Like it's that dance of knowing how do I call someone out and when do I need to have that compassion because they need to kind of process this,
Mhm. Yeah, it
right?
makes sense. Mhm.
Um, so that's what I've so appreciated about that process. And of course, the horses, they just make everything better.
They surely do. And I can say it would be super helpful with people with ADD or, um, autism, because you have to focus in. And if you're interested, then you got the inverse, the hyper focus, which
Mhm.
maybe actually helps you stay very, very present. Uh, I but you gotta pay attention. You can't be checking out too much when there's some danger or things like that, or it just won't work. So I can see how that would help people, work through these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just also build confidence, right? Because when you're leading a horse or picking their feet out or brushing them or, you know, eventually, depending on the situation, riding, right? It's this partnership that
Yeah,
and this
uh-huh.
confidence that I've seen with individuals. I mean, I think of one young lady, who was little while I was teaching, she had a big family. Her parents were going through a divorce, and she was pretty quiet, and I sometimes wondered, "What am I doing for her?" Right? But I would make her do whatever it is I made her do, and she was seeing a therapist, and her mom said, "She's having a really hard time, and this is the one thing she enjoys because she knows it's hard, but she can be successful."
Mm,
She's
yeah,
not gonna be judged if she doesn't do it right, and again,
yeah,
right to your point
uh-huh.
with individuals that are neurodivergent where it's like, "Oh, I don't do things right." The
Yeah,
horses care, right?
I
Like,
don't
if
yeah.
meeting their needs and you're meeting the safety, like, there are different ways you can go about certain things.
Seems that and also there's the rejection sensitivity dysphoria aspect. I think that it's helpful because yeah, the worst does they're gonna "You suck as a writer." They don't care.
No, no, they
They'll
don't.
accept you.
I mean, some of them, like, the ones that have been around, they might give you a look like, "What? Okay."
There might be some feedback, yeah.
There might be some feedback, right? But if they're riding an appropriate horse, it's appropriate feedback, right? Like, we need to learn to take that feedback, and to your point
Yes,
that, if the horse is like, "No, I don't want to," it's not that it's a character flaw. They just
exactly, yeah,
right? It's just they need to be clear on what the ask is, because the horse is
yes.
like, "You're not clear, so I'm gonna blow you off."
Mhm,
Okay. Well, you again, not a you thing, you need to be clearer
mhm,
like, there's nothing wrong with you, you just need to be clear in your messaging, right? And
yes,
so that's where, especially with that rejection sensitivity dysphoria, like, how do you learn to get feedback and be
mhm.
okay with it?
That's so healing because then you can take that into the human world where, it's different, but you learn to take things less personal. It feels like someone's criticizing your soul with that, I don't know, what's called a symptom of ADHD.
Mhm.
And sometimes people get it confused with, like, personality disorders because of the reaction that, of when people feel criticized with ADHD, but, I mean, it's not the same thing, of course. But what a great way to desensitize yourself in a way and just be objective and like, "Oh, I need to do this better." It wasn't, criticism of my soul or my character, like you said. I could see that being super helpful. If you're doing coaching and that comes up, is that where you say, "Oh, bring this to the therapist," or do you have a way to work with that? Because I know it's big for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's a combination of, but
Mhm.
right, like, I th you it's, if they're working with a therapist, what's the coping strategy? But sometimes first, I think the biggest thing is acknowledging the feeling. But then how do you learn to, again, those strategies of stepping back to, I don't wanna say, contradict your brain, but understand what's real and what's not,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
right? Because there's aspects of it that, maybe there's a little bit of truth in it, and we have to think about, "Okay, this is how I was interpreted, even though that's not what I meant. Okay, what do I need to think about, or how do I have to have agency and explain to folks, hey, if I do this, that's just me being really excited. It's not like, being aggressive or whatever." So I think it's a first it's acknowledging it. normalizing it, and then how do we learn to ride the waves?
Mm. Mhm.
And if we have a big reaction, well, how do we kind of reset
Mhm.
before I think the biggest thing I'm like, learning too in coaching, right? As you know, it's never ending, is that sometimes we don't have to address it right away. So if we have this big reaction, that's okay. Then how do you kind of find a way to ground yourself first? You need to go for a walk or whatever it might be. And then how do you go through a process or a strategy to kind of just what's the word? It's not, it's fall out of my head. But basically decide what can I do and what can I do and what's a maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, ground yourself, let your nervous system
Mhm.
come back to baseline. That's
Yeah.
half the battle is letting your nervous system come back to baseline. That's that motherfucker's running hot. That gets triggered and your prefrontal cortex kinda gets a little flooded.
It does, and it's thinking of, like, when I used to work with middle schoolers in particular, right? Their nervous system gets flooded all the time, right? Their
Mhm.
stress tolerance is lower, they're going through this adolescent process, they're starting adolescence, and so they'll have this, like and some of them are very, very sensitive, and they'll have the huge meltdown. Well, can't do anything in the meltdown.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. It's
You're
like trying to talk to a drunk person, like, and rationalize them. Like,
you
"No,
you
let's wait till they're sober."
exactly. And then again, like, I've talked with my clients where it's like, okay, this happened, and we would name it, something. And then we would talk about, could you notice how it was building?
Mm,
Right. And so I would do that with clients so we could name it. Um, and and then he would in those instances, he would write, "Okay, when I'm here, this is what I need mom to do." Because mom's like, "I don't know what to do," and he, like, just melts down, like, "I don't know what to do." So we came up with a playbook, and mom knew what the rules were, but we were ultimately trying to get before the explosion, and it basically came from that fact that he didn't understand some of the things that were going on. He didn't have all the information, so he thought he was being rejected. And he was a very sensitive young man, and so it escalated really, really quickly when we just didn't have the information. And so I was like, but that's getting curious and looking at it, not thinking, oh, he's just hypersensitive. Well, no, this happened for a reason. We just don't know what the reason is yet. So let's figure this out together. Um,
yeah,
or,
that's
yeah.
good. I like that. Yeah, rather than just trying to shut down the blowout, which is, what every parent wants to stop, of course, but
Well, yeah, and we're gonna have them, but if kiddos or even, young adults, anyone, if we can start recognizing, how it feels in us, right? Some
Mm,
people visceral or we just notice whatever that thing is, if we can start noticing what that looks like, but sometimes it's having the blow up, and then coming back to it later and trying to reverse engineer it to see were there trigger stacks? Was there misinformation? Was there lack of sleep? Whatever it might be. Are we stressed? And that was just the thing that just took us over the top.
yeah. Do you even know why this is a part of ADHD or ADD? Or even is it does Asperger's autism spectrum have a rejection sensitivity component? Probably, right?
Yeah, yeah, 'cause I mean, if you think of it, like, it's sort of like everything's sort of like spectrum, and especially if
Mhm,
there's, like, multiple diagnosis, it's
mhm,
one of one, but I would say yes. Yes, and they're very and, like, I'm generalizing, but I'd say a lot of my clients, even when they're on the spectrum, they're also very aware. They might not understand what everything means, but they're very aware that, like, that certain things like the injustice, big time injustice, they're very aware of injustice. But then how do we do it so we don't internalize it,
yeah, that's good.
right? And so
Mhm,
that's where I always think of, um Have you ever heard of Dr. Ross Green? So he does collaborative problem solving, and I did his training many, many, many moons ago. But one of the things I really appreciate about him, and it's a theme in everything I do, everybody's doing the best they can with the skills that they have. So if things aren't going well, which usually comes out behaviorally, what are the lagging skills versus thinking, oh, they don't care, blah, blah, the story we make or the judgment we
Narrative.
yeah, versus, well, let's get really curious, and I do that with my adult clients, right? Well, this presentation, I always feel like, people don't hear my message and it's because they don't care or they think blah 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 about me. And I'm like, well, let's think about your audience. And then we come to the realization of, oh, we need to just add some speaking presentation skills, right? Versus that somehow they're too much or they're too this or whatever.
Totally.
We have
Yeah.
some nuances, which is going to take some extra reps to
Mhm.
learn how to do that.
Mhm. More than the average folk, I'd imagine, because we all experience that no matter where we are, but it's probably a little harder for the neurodivergent folk.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, it's a doozy. Um, I don't know, is it are we just more aware of this now? I mean, the DSM-5 came up with the spectrum, everything's on the spectrum, which I like, but I like to feel like that was Huberman said there are lumpers and splitters. Why
Yep.
can't we have both? Like, I like a lump, but can we like Asperger's was a good thing, and they just tossed it. Like, but that's a part of the spectrum we should really know about. ADD and attentive versus ADHD. I like. Let's have both. Like, I want my cake and eat it too. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a more awareness,
mhm.
and then, yeah, I think there is more awareness and, like it or not, aspects of social media, right? When people are talking about their diagnosis or their experiences, um, I think
May or may
absolutely. What was that?
may or may not have ADD.
Yeah, who may or may not have ADD.
Self-diagnosed.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think I think there is an awareness. I mean, usually, like, when kiddos are diagnosed younger, it's because 'cause they're having academic challenges, but
Mm.
your point earlier, like, with, the students that are compliant because they sit in their seat, but daydreaming, then are they pulling all-nighters to get the homework in? Like, are they doing really well at school, and then they come home and they're in epic just meltdown. Everybody's walking on eggshells because they haven't had a chance to reset throughout the day, right? They're trying to be good and then there's nothing left in the tank. So parents get the ugly part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I I do think there is I think to me it's okay, that's information, understanding the executive function component, working memory. Is there a learning disability? Okay, how are we going to support this? And especially when they're younger, there's a lot of scaffolding and there's a lot of intervention,
Mhm.
which can be really challenging for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've seen it where they're with my daughter, like, keeps it together at school and then comes home and has the meltdown. How do you with kids like that, how do you help them reset? What do you do?
Well, I love it when we can partner with the school.
Okay.
Where are there opportunities, like, where could or how could they and I know you usually have to get accommodations, but I don't know, some teachers are just, I don't know, they're so special because they'll, like, have all the kids have those little glitter things, right? If they know the kids are getting upset, "Hey, shake the little glitter thing and watch the glitter go down." Or they practice self-regulation in the classroom, or it's part of their language where maybe they sit next to the teacher and have a little reset. If we can build it in the school day, or if you
Mm,
know that's not possible, right? How can the kiddo transition, right? Maybe it's, you know, there is some external processing and having to squeeze hands, or maybe they just go play or run. But what is that transition piece that where they can recharge or go move? kind of reset in every kiddo or even adults, right? How do we do that?
Yeah, I was
Right.
gonna say, yeah, we all have a version of this, I'm sure.
Yeah. How do we reset? How do we transition from work to home life?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And those of us that work from home, that can get really messy and sometimes
Ooh.
not our best selves.
Talk about shit getting blended.
Uh-huh. So
Yeah,
it's
go
great.
take a walk.
Yeah. So how do we kind of create that and establish that? And again, it's that slow down because I don't have time to go for a walk. I don't have time to whatever it is. Go play
Uh-huh.
outside. Now,
Mhm,
what's the cost when you don't?
mhm. The meltdowns for everybody.
Huh? Right?
Of any ages.
Of any age, like, it's
Yeah,
part of the human condition.
it is, yeah, transitions are always funny too. Yeah, and you got the kids that are, like, in 19 sports and things like that, which can be helpful, but it's also very stimulating when they get downtime or whatever. That's always a tricky balance. Like, my daughter's doing ballet, jujitsu, and soccer, and
Oh,
I'm her
wow.
coach in soccer. Yeah, and we're not trying to add too many more things, but there's, like, well, they learn an instrument at some point, so we're thinking about that. Remember when we were kids and they made us, like, play those recorders?
Yes. I
What
wish
the hell was that? And that didn't serve anything. I thought they're carrying this gross thing around, like, and they don't do it anymore. It's like, what? Who thought of that? It's like, they
I
get an
don't
instrument. Like, that was my first instrument.
well, I mean, we learn how to supposedly play music, and you probably what was
Yeah.
it? We all the, bar band goes marching in, I think we are saints or something like that, we all had to play terribly.
Yeah. Or Ode to Joy or whatever.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I remember the recorder and having those I feel for parents having to listen to those recorder recitals. Oy.
Oh my god, I know. Luckily, I got thrown into violin, like, shortly after that. That was cool, but, yeah, the recorder was like, "This is stupid." I don't know. I'm kinda glad they don't do it anymore, but, yeah, the kids can get overloaded with events, you wanna expose them to things, but then they can get overwhelmed, and I'm sure neurodivergent kiddos probably a little more overstimulated with all the events.
Yeah, and it's just thinking about how do we have like in terms of like executive function, right? Those critical thinking skills for younger kids. Best way to teach that is that they just play outside or have unstructured play,
Mm, mm,
right? With
mhm,
whether it's blocks or outside, and they're coming up with their own games or having to just
mm,
figure stuff out
mhm,
right on their own, and nobody's telling them it's wrong or right, and they just figure it out. That can really help with that executive function, as well as that's the one place that it's not to your point, like we want to give our kids everything, but sometimes enough is enough where they just need
yeah,
to go play
yeah.
or
Like, tell me what to do.
right, or they want like I mean, a friend of mine, her kids are out here and what is her daughter was like 13 or 14 and she wanted to make us this loaf of bread, banana bread or something. And I put everything out and it was just a big mess. Her mom was like, "How does this not drive you crazy?" I'm like, "She wanted to do this. This isn't my project, and she's gonna help clean up the mess. I know it's gonna be a mess. She wants to do this.
Mhm.
So here you go." And it was a mess. It was actually pretty good. Um, but she was really proud of what she baked, right?
Mhm.
Was it
Yeah.
perfect? I don't even remember. It tasted good. Was it pretty? No, she was disappointed because the crumbles weren't just right because of the because we're out here in Colorado, so the altitude sort of screwed up her baking.
Oh, right, yeah.
But, I
Mhm.
mean, I to me, that I call it controlled chaos. I
Yeah,
love
there you go.
kids get to do that or teenagers wanna cook dinner. I mean,
Mhm.
I just don't really I try not to look too much at the splatters until the
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. It's hard. It's really hard.
it is hard, but, just giving them that opportunity to just figure stuff out and
Mhm.
is so is so special too.
For sure. Speaking of messes, what are the data on environments with 8 people with ADD, ADHD? I've heard if the environment's like a mess, it's extra stress and it makes it worse. And I've also heard some people with ADD, ADHD are messy, and others are like organized. Some people do the piles method, and that's organization because there are
Yep.
piles. I know where that is, but it's an organized, it's like controlled chaos. Versus some people that are just like, it's got to be the right place over here, or else I'm stressed. I don't know how that works out.
Well, I think it's well, one, like the word organization, my favorite word is maintained. So
Mm,
some of them have wonderful systems and come up with these wonderful systems, but they're not maintainable. So I think there is just in general, the majority of my clients, they might not be neat freaks, but having a
mhm.
tidy space, right? If there's a lot of clutter, it's hard for them to focus because their brain is noticing everything around them,
Everything. Yeah, exactly.
everything. But
Uh-huh.
it's not, it requires more effort and intention. And
Mm.
those launching pads, right? Like my keys go here is because it supports their working memory. Because if they put their keys over there and they go to the other room, they've already forgot where their keys
Just
are,
yeah, doesn't exist anymore.
right? So even in our house, like we have a launching pad of where all the keys and wallets and stuff go.
Mm,
I love my husband. He's like 50-50 if it makes it in the bucket. So I just throw it in the bucket if I see it. But we taught the kids that. So I think it's and then the piles, right? There's order in that, but a big part of it usually is they need to see it. If they don't see it, it doesn't exist.
the cues.
Right? The cues. So
Mhm,
that's where sometimes like like I'll think of some of my clients' closets, they have clear baskets that they've labeled and they just
mm.
pants, socks. They can't have it in a dresser drawer because it just doesn't mean anything to them because they don't
You
see
don't see
it.
it. Interesting, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's thinking about, like, one, is there a frustration point? Usually there is, right? I'm always late or I can't find this or that, and then that's where we build in those systems of, like, those launching pads. Like, it's great for kids learning the night before, have your backpack all ready, right? So you're kinda training them.
Mhm,
Um, so when they're older, that's just part of it's more likely to be a part of their process versus
mhm.
to start all over. Yeah. So I mean, it's either um, Dr. Dawson was smart but scattered. Like you're kind of born super organized or you're not. The
Yeah.
super organized people don't understand the disorganized people.
Yeah,
Vice versa. And so it's really thinking about how do I tailor my living environment that supports me. And I know there's organizational coaches out there, not organization or organize that are for like home organizers that will
mm.
design your house based on your brain.
Interesting. Well, what
Yeah.
a niche, place to be, that's great.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And I've had like people reach out looking for coaching and it's specifically about their living space.
Mhm.
I have a couple referrals in Colorado area that I'm like, "Go talk to them." I did that work a little bit,
Mhm.
and, I'm okay, but I'm not great. Like, this particular person, I wish I could remember her name, is sensational, like, in terms of how she designs the space based on the person and how they kind of live,
Mhm.
is really cool because that reduces a lot of friction, to your point, in that environment. 'Cause when there's a lot of clutter, it's really hard to
Oh, I
focus.
get stressed out. I hate it. I can't I'm a neat freak, I like things neat and orderly, and if there's a mess, I get distracted and it's like, "Ah!" I don't I don't like it. I hate it.
Yeah, I'm I appreciate that. I mean, the horses taught me that, like, with the barns and stuff, you want everything tidy, you wanna know where everything is, right? And then when I was on the road, how you pack stuff up, you went and showed, and then you came home and you unpacked it, like,
Mhm.
N mm-mm. I am the only one in my family, like, when we get home, I put everything away right away. I don't
Me
want
too.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they all grumble at me, and I'm like, "Don't
Just get
care.
it done.
We're getting that done. Makes me happy, which means I won't be grumbly about it. Just do
Mhm.
it." And so, but that was years of being on the road, and horses, like, taught me
Mhm.
that, right? Um,
Mhm. That's
so
good.
it's for some people, it's a skill, it requires effort and support.
Mhm. Yeah, I like it because then I know where things are, or else it just disappears, back to the working memory thing. I'm pretty sure I'm the ADD and attentive type if I self-diagnose somewhere on that spectrum.
Yep.
Not too bad, but if I was to be, that would be it. And that's that interesting part about the working memory. Like you have the long-term memory, and then the working memory is you're remembering stuff for a short amount of time, and at some point, if it stays, it implants to long-term. ADHDers, it's like I call them external squirrels and internal squirrels. External squirrels are obvious. Oh, a squirrel, or oh, look at that, and then you're like forgetting what you even talked about or what you were going to say, or where you put things. A lot of people figure out the internal squirrels is your thoughts and your emotions. They can be distracting. You're thinking about one thing, and then like something blitzes you out of nowhere, and then you forgot what the other thing you were talking about is, and it's super frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. And that working memory, right? Like you said, is key. And with ADHD in general, there's a limited capacity. And so that's where like having those launch pads or having the kind of tidy systems, you're kind of saving that. I call it kind of like this executive function battery or working memory battery. This is not very scientific, but if you're having to look for stuff all the time, you're churning through that working memory, right? And you're fried and it's not even 9 o'clock and you're toast.
Absolutely toast. Yes, tired. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So and then too, like when you're in conversations, right? How do you leave those breadcrumbs or the people in your community like know you're going somewhere and you're like, hey, what rabbit hole did you just go down on what I said?
Yeah, exactly. I
Right?
saw your eyes go over there.
It's non-judgment, you just give 'em a tap on the shoulder
Mhm.
or whatever, like, "Hey, come back." I think Trevor Noah had a conversation about that, I think it was on 60 Minutes talking about his ADHD. Somebody will have a conversation and how his brain goes, like,
Tree
"Woo," in
branch.
all these different directions, but the
Mhm.
people around him, because he's been so open about who he is, are like, "Hey, come
This
back.
first thing we talked about, yeah.
We don't need that. We just need A. We're still on A."
We're here. Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But it is how do we think about preserving that memory and then also compassion if we're not sleeping well or there's a lot
Mm,
of other things going on in our lives, like, we're getting of the age where we're having to support our parents. That's a lot of outside noise, or when we're moving, we're not gonna be at 100% capacity. So, we have to leave a lot more breadcrumbs, go a lot slower, be a little
mhm,
bit kind,
mhm.
you know, and some people know that and some don't. And we just have to share that with them.
Yeah. Self-compassion is good. And,
Mhm.
there are I think the evolutionary psychologists talk about ADD being something that's been kept in the gene pool because these were the guys and gals that would be no, they can't sit still and be we've confused, complacency with contentedness. We don't know the difference, like, we gotta be like, let's explore a novel, like, there's the people that went and like, "Oh, there's another place over there, let's go find it," and then we come back and say, "Hey, there's a better place over there," and everyone's like, "Really? Yeah, let's go." Then we don't sleep well because we're always thinking about the next thing, and, like, it keeps it in the gene pool, and then the hyper focus aspect to it. So if you have this diagnosis, there are good things about it too. And modern society doesn't really value that as much, and also can make it worse at the fast pace of society today. I think it makes it worse, but you can make it work for you as well.
Absolutely. It's figuring out like I was doing a training and one of the students, or was it the co-trainer? I can't remember. But basically said, right, you can have know your strengths, but in the wrong environment, they're not your strengths anymore.
There it is. Yeah.
Right. So my clients, they're amazing. They're amazing, but it's how do we find or how do they create environments that support them?
Hmm. Yeah, it's really school because and I hated like high school. I got like a 3.0 and didn't try. Like the classes I liked,
Yep.
straight A's. Classes I didn't, C's. Like math, go fuck yourself. Like, it's stupid. Boring as fuck. I don't wanna do it. I didn't even apply myself, but then you get bad grades, and then when you're that age, you're like, "Oh, I'm just dumb." Like, or the teacher tells you, "You have this potential, you never apply it," or like, "What's wrong with you?" And they don't understand. It's like, there's that novelty aspect. If I don't care, I'm not gonna do it. So,
Hmm.
having someone like you or like a school system that understands that Is that gonna happen? Is that gonna exist? Like, we're gonna have, like, a ADHD school where I'd
Well,
love to watch that, by the way.
I would be super interesting, but, like, what you just shared, the classes you liked, you were phenomenal, and you got C's in the classes you didn't. Well, for me, that's super interesting because 'cause you're still getting C's. Like, you have figured out what is the minimum requirement I need to meet to pass that class. That to me, I'm like, "Oh," like, when students can articulate that to me, okay, that's super interesting. That we
Mhm.
need to figure out how do we articulate to that to your parents that this is very intentional, right?
Yes.
Even if it's
Yeah.
unorthodox, you're doing I don't know what you did, but you're doing your math homework in Spanish.
Yes, or procrastinating, so there was such inertia that I had to cram. The only way I got through my master's and PhD program was to doodle during lecture. I would just check the fuck out. But if I'm doodling, it all goes in. And
Exactly.
I tried note taking and it was like, I'm not gonna read this later. I'm absolutely not gonna go back and look at my notes. 100% no. But if I would doodle, it would just go in and I would actually remember it.
That's
It's
amazing.
bizarre, but so that's how I got through. I
But
wish I would've learned that in high school.
yeah, but, like, so imagine if you were having a conversation with someone and that you were sharing that in high school, and it was like, "Oh, that's super fascinating. Okay, like, then how are you maximizing this? How are you doing that? What are you learning?" Because to me, like, that's what coaching is like, yeah, we're coming up with plans, and it's reflecting, right? And, like, literally, I'll have some students that'll be like, "Well, I know if I will always do this, like, history homework right right before history because there's
Exactly.
inertia, and
Yeah.
I don't particularly like history, but I love my teacher,
Yeah. There's
right? Like,
another
I
aspect, yeah.
can't tell you how many students are like, "I don't particularly like this subject, but, I really like my teacher."
Or vice versa.
Yeah, right? And those teachers can make such an impact, even if
Huge.
the kid's getting a C, but they're just so happy to still see them, you know? Like, high school, I did not do well in AP Bio. Like, it was not good, but I loved my teacher, and she was just like, "I don't know what to tell you, Roxy," and I'm like, "Nobody does." Like, we've all tried. I can't pass tests to save my life. Like, just try. And I mean, however many years later, and, I still get to see her every once in a while, and she's a lovely woman, but she never judged me or thought, "Hey, Roxana doesn't care because she can't pass a test to save her life, but she does really well in lab." But could you imagine, like, the math teacher being like, "All right, Miles, totally get you don't get it. Appreciate that you're getting the C's and you're showing up and, you're whatever. I just appreciate you."
Oops, that would've gone a long ways.
Exactly. Maybe you would have got a C plus. Maybe it wouldn't have changed any,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe I would've waited, like, 1 week instead of the day before.
Yeah, and again, like, that procrastination piece, that's developmentally appropriate and normal,
Mhm.
right? And, like, when I'm working with college students and they're like, "Well, I'm gonna pull an all-nighter." Okay, well, that is a strategy, but let's talk about all the things that need to go right to pull that off. What could go wrong that would screw up your all-nighter? Right? It's not I mean, I did them. 'Em. I'd be a total hypocrite if I said I didn't do them in college. Okay, well, let's think about it, and over time, they'll be like, "That's not very effective. I'm not good at all-nighters," or right? But it's always
And
conversation, and I think it's just when students in particular aren't doing well or they're doing well over here and not so much over here, well, let's just get curious about it.
mm,
Right? Is it they figured out the minimum? Especially my student athletes, the parents get really frustrated and they're like, "They're just getting C's." Okay. Do they get to play? Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. They're meeting expectation. Could they
they're
do
gonna get their degree.
yeah, maybe, I don't know, but that's not for us. If they want the help, I'm here to support them, but
Mhm,
they're getting it done because 'cause they're playing.
mhm. Yeah. Then that's their goal probably.
Yes, and that's where actually, because I have had that, that's where coaches too, in the public school system, I can't remember, it's 2 Fs or 1 F, you can still play, which makes
Okay.
me crazy. But I've had coaches that are like, That not my not on my team. Everybody's gotta be getting Cs."
Mm, mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And I had a one senior who he didn't think he had to keep doing school, and I'm like, "You still have to do school, like, away your acceptance at this college, like, it is not guaranteed." And I called the coach and I was like, "Hey, coach, what's your philosophy?" He's like, "Everybody's gotta be passing, period, every class." I was like, "Alright, well, got my your senior." He's like, "Well, he's my captain." He's like, "What the hell?" And I was like, "You need to have a conversation with him."
Mm,
And
mhm.
then, he did, and he said, "I will bench you. I don't care if it's your senior year." And then I had one more conversation with the kid. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Saturday school. I'm gonna fix it." And that was the end of it. But that was because coach was like, "The rule doesn't change just because 'cause you're a graduating senior and you're the captain. Like, come on."
Yeah.
Right? Sure, he was a little more eloquent, but that's where I think, even as middle school, high school, elementary, college, young adults, we need our people, and how do we work together to have that message and kinda set that bar knowing they can meet it. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Totally.
You know?
Why is there such a big thing with procrastination and overwhelm with neurodivergency?
So, to your point earlier, thinking of that brain, right? Like novelty, what gets that dopamine going, right? Novelty, interest, and urgency.
Mhm.
And so it's really thinking about assuming that the deadline means something. It's kind of creating that dopamine, but then
Mhm.
when they go to start the project, and oftentimes, which is part of the procrastination, they didn't know where to start to begin with.
So it's overwhelming.
And then it's overwhelming. And then we're
Mhm.
not turning it in, and then there's all these stories. So it's kind of like, when did they get away with it with the urgency and meeting the deadline? And when does it fall apart? And let's get curious about it.
Mm.
Right? Because sometimes the overwhelm is the back of their brain took over, and they're internalizing everything, all the things they have to do, but they're thinking about things that are a month ago, but it's all smashed in the same bucket.
I feel
And
that.
it's, like, overflowing, and so a big part of my work is teaching people how to externalize it,
Hmm.
right? To start to see it. So sometimes with clients that are like even your daughter, right? Big verbal processors, how are we capturing that information in a way that they can start to see, "Oh, actually, that doesn't matter." Right? This is over here, this is over here, because that overwhelm can then turn into that paralysis where then I feel so yucky, I'm gonna go over here because 'cause I'll feel a little better over here, right?
I know that one really well.
Right? Like, our my kitchen, I had a big presentation years ago, my kitchen was never cleaner.
Exactly. Productive procrastination.
That's exactly what I call it. So I think it's like thinking about it, and again, that, okay, let's understand what your overwhelm is. Let's figure out your process. What is that telling us? And usually that's why I love the executive function model, is it's looking at the components of it. Is it organization? Is it prioritizing and planning? Do you even understand what the steps are? Do we know what the outcome needs to look like, and how can we reverse engineer it? Because so often when that overwhelm happens, when you start getting curious, usually there's a lot of really good questions they don't know the answers to. Or potentially they're trying to take something small and make it like completely amazing when it's like, no, it just needs to meet this requirement.
Perfect.
Yes, right? That perfectionism can be really
Yeah.
big. And,
Yep.
and there's all these sayings. And again, like, one of the things I've learned is there's a time and a place. For the discussion post, can we just have a shitty little
Yeah.
discussion post and get some points? Like, it does not need to be a dissertation.
No. Speaking of dissertations, man, it took me forever to do mine with procrastination, and they would have these, seminars for people that are, like, not getting it done, and I would show up, and then I bought this book, like, Stop Procrastinating, and brought it with me, like, "Oh, do you like the book?" I'm like, "I haven't read it yet." It was so bad. Like, "I'm gonna read this," and I brought it with me, and, like, yeah, I haven't cracked any of it. It took me so long to write that damn thing, but It's just so overwhelming, just so much. And it's
Well, and
just yeah.
I mean, I've worked with a couple of graduate students, and I have some friends that have gone through that process. That just seems like a different kind of hell.
Yeah.
Because
It
it's
really is.
big nebulous thing and you're on your
Lost.
own, like, isolate like,
Mm.
I don't know. That just sounds I've thought about PhD, but then when I started working with some graduate students, I'm like, "I don't know that I wanna go through that."
It is not fun. I think only 1% of all people get PhDs. Like, that's how brutal it is. It
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 just
was, uh it was an experience. Made me a better writer, that's for sure, because my editor would just destroy everything I wrote, but, it took me years, like, I would just chip away at it. Rem There was one guy, in our program, he's actually on Traver's podcast Summit recently. He finished his before coursework was done. He was, like, the fastest ever to write his dissertation. It's like, "How the hell did you do that?"
oh my
It
gosh.
was amazing. Det does not have ADD, I'm sure. He just
Wow.
cranked it up.
That's amazing. Cause like, to me, there's so many moving parts, and then the formatting, and then
The citations, notations, all the research and, like, the rabbit holes you go down, you open up one book to get something, and then you look at that, it's like, "Oh, but he referenced that book, and I go into that book," and then you're, like, 15 books in, and ADD is like, all the possibilities, and before you know it, your Amazon cart's is showing up, like, with 15 books and, like, one you needed, and, like, "What am I gonna do with these stupid books?" But that one thing I might need, it really tripped me up for a long time. Man, it was so bad. I
oh,
still have books that I'm never gonna touch. I mean, look behind me, like, this is just a
well,
quarter of what's going on.
look behind me.
You got the same thing.
Yes, and I do the same thing, um, to, look at the footnotes, and then I'm super curious, but that's
Mhm,
where, right, when you have that neurodivergence and you are going down these rabbit holes, it's like, how do you create that scaffolding to
mm,
sort of contain you? I call it swim lanes, right?
mm.
How are we really clear of that swim lane? And again, like, we don't wanna say, bad rabbit hole. Is this a good time for the rabbit hole?
I coulda used that.
Right? Like, how is it meeting kind of within what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
'Cause again, it's like, it's not a bad thing, but and it serves you. I'm sure there's been plenty of times where that rabbit hole, it's like, now I have
Oh, yeah.
that piece of information.
Yeah, for sure. When you're doing research, it can
Right.
be effective.
And then but for that piece of dissertation, it's like, well, what is which is usually like, um creating something external to keep you sort of contained-ish?
Mhm, mhm.
Right?
Ish is a good word, yeah.
Right? Where it's like maybe 2 books versus 15, or like 2 days versus 20? I don't know, I'm making stuff up, but that's where it's kind of, how do you do that with meetings? How do you do that with your community?
Mm.
Or meeting, like, with a coach or a therapist, like, where you're kind of stepping away from it to be like, "Uh, oh."
Yeah. Whoa. Where am I? I had
Ex
to create something like that around, buying books on Amazon because I get really curious or I listen to a podcast like, "Oh, that book's great, add to cart," and then you're like, now I just add to wish list, and it's like shit you not, like 4,000 books deep.
I
That
can
saved me a lot of money.
Yes, I started doing that, or for a while, I would put them all in the cart, and then I would let them sit there, and then I would see what was in the library, and I would check out, but yes, I have the same problem.
One day I'll read it.
Well, or I've started, like, using certain books as reference, but then I have started getting a lot of stuff from the library, uh, but if I'm taking a lot of notes and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go buy it now."
Yeah. Well, there's a good heuristic right there. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that impulse control it's just really rough sometimes.
It
I
is.
get into a podcast and that book sounds so cool and, like, I'm gonna read it and I buy it and then, like, it just sits there. Like, 'cause the next one came in before, it's the recency bias. Dude, I got books going back to, like, 2014 I haven't cracked yet, like, my god.
Well, yeah, and then to your point, right? Like, maybe you will, or maybe it'll be a reference, because a lot of mine are reference, or sometimes I've started doing audiobooks first.
Mm. You can do that?
Mhm. Yeah,
I check out.
yeah,
I
it
space out.
depends. It has to be good if I know I'm checking out or I don't like the voice. But I think, like, yes, to your point, impulse control, but knowing that about yourself, then you found a system, right? And at the same time, yeah, you have all these books, but then I don't know, I'm justifying, maybe I'm rationalizing because I have the same problem. So I'm making myself feel good. It's always
Uh,
a point of reference,
yeah.
right?
You
And
have
then
it there, and maybe your kids will read it one day or whatever.
exactly, or sometimes then I'll go through and I'm like, which is the hardest thing for me to do, is like pass the
Purge.
book on.
Yes.
But I think it's finding those systems, but also appreciating the curiosity,
Yeah,
right?
that's the good part. Yeah, that's the good part.
And that's the fun part in the journey. And so maybe again, I'm biased because I so appreciate your I'm not the only one who goes, "Ooh, that's a cool footnote. I'm gonna go get that book now."
Yeah, you never know. It's gonna change something in me, I don't know. Just that curiosity.
Yeah, it is. So it's like figuring out how do you kind of, I don't wanna say contain it, but just be a little more intentional of when do you go buy it, or library, like, what are those systems and processes to just check ourselves, both of us, in terms of, do we really need this right now?
Mhm.
Or does the podcast, because sometimes the podcast is enough.
It's true, I have gotten books and like, "Man, this he just said this in the podcast. I didn't need this book."
Exactly, which is where, like, sometimes now I'll save podcasts, and since they have the transcripts, I'll
Yeah,
use that as a point of reference, and then again, find it.
that's smart.
Yeah, so sometimes that I'll do that, and then especially if they've done a couple podcasts, then I might go, "Okay, that would be good for me to have that book as a point of reference."
Mhm,
Um, so
that's clever.
yeah, so that has been, I've had a couple Huberman trying transcripts. I'm like, "Oh, okay, this, and quote
Mhm.
that."
Yeah, that one's dangerous for me too, 'cause a lot of good books from people on there. The
Absolutely.
other problem I have is, we have Powell's books out here. It's like one of the biggest independent booksellers ever still in the whole country, and you can sell them used books, and they used to just give you store credit or money. Now that it's only store credit, so I purge books, and I come home with, like, the same amounts 'cause all you can buy is more books. You used to get money, you're like, now you just get more books, so it's just like a revolving door. It's kinda junk, but
Well, it is, and I think, like, when we do have those interests, and then if we have a neurodivergent brain that sometimes it goes to next level, right? How do we, harness it? And then also, how do we have systems in place so that it doesn't hurt us?
mhm. I like the systems or heuristics, whatever you wanna say.
Yeah. So
It's
again,
good.
it's like what makes us us, but also, how do we find that, I don't want to say balance, that volley.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Hey, between the when is that intentional rabbit hole versus just riding the ride.
yeah. So easy to ride the ride.
Mhm. And
It's fun.
yes, it is. It takes more effort, and then also finding other people with a book problem.
You can just start a support group here.
Uh-huh. Yep.
I think there's, like, a Japanese word for people who have the delusion that they will read all the books in their lifetime that they've bought.
Oh, yes, there is.
You've heard of that? Yeah. I
Yes,
am
I have.
definitely
But
I'm there.
you have to us to understand, my parents had book problems. Like, in our house, the whole basement was built-in shelves of books.
Ooh, I love it.
Every wall had a book,
Love
or
it.
a bookshelf that was completely packed.
Yeah.
Like, and then they finally purged them all, um, when we were trying to sell the house, but, like, I mean, thousands upon thousands
Fuck. Yeah, yeah.
of of books, so I come by it, naturally.
Yeah. We have, like, independent bookstores in our houses, like,
Uh-huh,
you
pretty
just open up the shop.
yeah, pretty
Come
much,
on in.
but it's been fun, because there's certain books that I'll collect, like, I'll buy extras because they're great gifts.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Or like I had a young man that used to house sit for us and he was starting his own business and I have a bunch of business books and things like that. And he'd be like, he'd go through my house. He's like, I'm checking these ones out. I'm like, no problem.
Alright.
And I'm like, since you're at it, go check this one out too, because that one kind of pulls it all together.
There you go.
Hmm.
Making it work for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Well, before we rabbit hole anymore, what have we what have we missed that we need to talk about? Is there anything else you wanna drop in on?
I mean, I can't think of anything. I mean, I think the thing is if you are self-diagnosed or diagnosed with ADHD on the spectrum, is just thinking about the biggest one is learning self-compassion and really learning how to note all the things you do right and well
I love that.
and what you yeah.
Write it down so you can see it.
Write it down, absolutely. See it,
Cues.
cues, and then those in your community that, um, whether it's a family member or sometimes that's where a therapist or a coach can come into place to kind of remind you how far you've come.
Mm, that's great.
Right? Because so often, "Oh, I'm not good enough, blah, 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 I'm still not there." Well, let's talk about 6 months ago,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
where you are right now and the conversations that we're having. And no, it always takes longer than we think. It's a lifelong journey, right? And there's so much to be said for providing an alternative perspective.
Mm, absolutely. If somebody wants to work with you, where should they go?
I just, go to my website, rbtcoaching.com. And reach out to me there and you'll get a sense of who in addition to obviously our conversation of who I am. And I always welcome folks if they're looking for a coach and if for some reason I'm not their person, I always refer out to other coaches because I want people to find their person.
And are you on the ADD social media circuit? Do
No.
you have, like, a Instagram? Look at you.
No,
Well done. Well done.
I'm old school.
Yeah. Are you Gen X?
Yes.
We get we're lucky, right? One foot in, one foot out. I think we could resist that
Exactly.
whole
But
thing.
I'm
Yeah.
always happy to talk to folks and if they're like not sure where to start or their kid just got diagnosed.
Mhm.
Because I know it can be overwhelming. I'm always happy to give people resources just to support them in their journey, and I always say, going through it with their eyes wide open.
I love that. And your contact and emails on your website,
Yeah,
I'm sure. Great.
it's all there.
Put it in the show notes. Cool, we'll have to do a round 2. Um, maybe we can get Dewey on, we can do a trio. That'd be fun.
Would be fun.
Yeah.
I would enjoy that.
I know you would. So would I.
That would be awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time and just having our chat.
Of course. Alright, hang up for a sec. I wanna say goodbye. For everybody else, we will see you next week, month, I don't know. I'm releasing these every like, twice a month now while I recover from what I'm going through. They will continue to come, but they won't be weekly for a little bit, but, they will still come. Anyways, until next time, we are out.